뒤에 걔 누구 같이 나오지 말라 이러고 만나자마자 핸드폰 달라 이래가지고 핸드폰 딱 꺼놓고 형 주머니에 넣고 있으라고. 알았죠?
나라에 대한 이런 불만이 지금 너무나도 못살고 너무나도 노안성에 내가 잡히게 된 거예요. 이렇게 얼리치고 내리치고 내 눈이 다 파랗게 되고 이렇게 버렇게 몸이 들어온 거예요. 너무 맞아가지고 내가 진짜 가다가 죽더라도 이 나라 땅에서 진짜 나가고 싶다.
So we have a special guest today, Ann Shin, the film director of the film Defectors. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
So I've watched your film and it was very powerful and unique because you got so close to the defectors, and as far as I know, I've never seen anyone else doing the same thing. So how did you first come up with the idea of following the defectors?
There have been others who've done this kind of film, but I didn't see anyone who'd kind of taken a full kind of comprehensive look at the risk and the huge numbers of defectors living in China or in Asia undercover, and also telling the story of the groups of people helping them, whether they're churches or NGOs or even guides and brokers. So I wanted to tell the complete story. In the end, I couldn't tell the entire story, but I was able to tell a story, yes.
And how did you find the subjects, and how did you convince them to be in your film?
Okay, so I found the subjects starting first by researching. With any documentary, you start with the research, and I'd done a lot of reading, but really I needed to meet people. So I was going to churches in my area in Toronto where I knew there were some North Korean defectors who had recently settled in Canada. I knew that they were coming there to those churches, so I went there and I met them and I talked, and I met dozens of defectors, and I interviewed some just to get their stories, and I started to be introduced to people they knew back in Asia, in China and South Korea, who were either helping defectors or helping people back in North Korea. And that way I was able to get connected with people that I knew would be trying to escape.
You went to China, and that's when you first met the defectors and Dragon, right? The broker Dragon. So what was your first impression? Do you remember the first time you met them?
Yeah. So in the end, I ended up working with, I worked with pastors as well as humanitarian organizations, but it was a broker named Dragon who was most willing to come on camera and do the entire journey. There were not many other people who could do the entire journey with the film crew for reasons of safety or risk or anything. So I ended up going with Dragon to a small farmhouse, safe house on the border of North Korea and China. And my cameraman, my soundman walked in, and there were a small group of defectors, and they were sitting there, and they looked at me, and they saw our cameras, and they were completely terrified. I was like, Dragon, you said that they wanted to be on camera, right? And he goes, oh, we have to talk to them. Meaning, no, he hadn't given his consent. So we had to sit down and talk to them. And I was like, oh my gosh, we flew all the way over here. We've been coming here undercover, and they might not even want us to film them, you know? So that's when I thought, oh, can I really trust this broker, right? But then we sat down and we had kanji, and I began to tell them my story, why I was interested, because of the way the Korean War affected my ancestors, my family, and how I was wanting to tell their story so that there'd be more people aware and hopefully able to help their effort. And I realized many of them, they wanted to tell their story, they just wanted to make sure that their identity was obscured.
그 다가가는 구간을 피하기 위해서 저희는 개인 차량으로 이동하든가 아니면은 이 차는 저녁에 공사하거든요. 아침 시간에. 그 사이 시간에
이게 몸이 막 떨렸어. 이게 숨이 안 나오는 거야.
I guess there were a lot of risks if you got ever caught up by the Chinese security because you're in charge of your film crews and also with the defectors. So what were you not worried or concerned about those risks at all?
Yes. So while we were in China, we weren't filming officially. We were filming undercover. And so we had to choose our equipment accordingly. We weren't taking any large video cameras or any conspicuous lights or anything. At the same time, we were in a country where there was lots of CCTV cameras everywhere. Even in the shigor, in the small countryside, there were CCTV cameras on the roads. And then in one of the safe houses in the apartment complex, so one of the apartments was a safe house. And in the parking lot, there was like 20 CCTV cameras. So, I mean, there's that concern. There's always surveillance in China. And then there's also the added concern of inspections on highways or trains or buses that you run. Particularly trains, you run the risk of inspections. And so I was constantly concerned for my cameraman, and particularly my sound man, who is Chinese and would have been severely penalized. But most importantly, the defectors and the people I interviewed in Korea, where if they saw my footage without the faces obscured, you know, their lives would be really badly affected. So we would meet every night, my crew, and we'd say, okay, tomorrow we have to do this train ride. And I would say, are you okay with this? These are the risks. I was like, do you want to go on? You know, and at one point we actually changed our travel plans because of it.
What was the most challenging particularly about this whole process?
There were two challenges. One was a moral challenge and one was a technical challenge. So I'll talk about the technical challenge, it's easier. The technical challenge is, as a filmmaker, I wanted to create the right interview settings. I wanted to film a lot with each individual and get their full story and just follow them moving around the city and their lives. But of course, we couldn't do that because they were on the run and escape. So we had very, very short times for interviews, and we had to be very quick. So stylistically, I had to do a lot in the end without enough footage that I would have preferred to have about their lives, to get to know them more. Morally, I think even now I'm constantly considering how this story is trying to broaden the issue so people are aware of it and can help out with the efforts of helping people living in hiding in Asia, these North Korean defectors living in hiding in Asia. But at the same time, you know, the individuals involved took a certain amount of risk, and so the risks that these individuals took to have their stories told is something I'm always mindful of. And that's morally, it's a question, you know, how much risk does this film put them into, and will it cause benefit for them and for other North Korean defectors?
In the end. And that links to my another question of what kind of influences or impacts do you think your film is bringing to the North Korean defectors and issues surrounding them?
I've been getting emails and calls from people all around the world, like Helsinki and Italy and Greece and France and, you know, United States, and they're doing screenings. So I think that a film like this not only helps people to see more about what's going on right now, but when there's a screening and there's a group of people getting together to watch it, there's more opportunity for them to think, okay, maybe we can do something. Maybe we can contribute money to humanitarian organizations or missionary groups that are helping these people. There's more of an opportunity for there to be some group efforts, I think.
Have you ever talked to any North Korean defectors who watched your film?
Yes.
Yes? And what were their responses like, if any different?
I think that, you know, it's been mixed. So some people say, thank you, it's good that you did this film. And other people say, you know, it's kind of a Hollywood version. It doesn't really get at the full pain, which of course this film really couldn't, because everyone has different experiences, and some of the I've interviewed so many people that weren't in the film people who had to live in a tunnel in a mountain. I've interviewed so many people who've had such hardship that I didn't show in this film. So I can totally understand their point too when they say, it's even harder than this. Yeah. As a Korean Canadian daughter of immigrants living in Canada, I live a very privileged life, and I've always been moved by the stories about North Koreans and those who'd escape, and I had the wonderful opportunity to work with them and to try and help them on their journey. But even now, there's so many more who need help, and even during the filming, there are women that I'd met that we couldn't take with us, who didn't have the money, or who had to stay and work underground in China and send money back to North Korea. And I just felt that if there was a way to somehow help these people, it would be good.
What do you suggest for people like us? What can we do at personal level, individual level?
I think there are several humanitarian organizations and church groups that do direct work with people, with North Korean defectors living in Asia, that you could contribute money to or contribute effort to. I think also I really am trying to be involved and aware of the North Korean refugee community here in Canada, because now that they're here in Canada, it doesn't mean that the struggles are over. I mean, it's so hard for any new immigrant, let alone a refugee, to start a life. And so that's very easy to kind of be aware of someone right beside you here in Canada and to maybe lend a helping hand to get them going. That's also something I think we could each do.
왜냐면 원스톱으로 한 사람이 가이드라면 한 사람이 금방 연결해서부터 끝까지 못 가요. 안전성의 문제도 있고 이쪽 애들은 순전히 마약이라든가 사람, 밀수, 도박장의 사람들. 목에서 떠나기 전에도 거짓말했다가 니 내한테 너 일로 수작질하지 말고.
So our group was supposed to have arrived last night or this morning. It would really be a heartbreaking thing if they got caught somewhere in the final leg of their journey. I'm really hopeful that